to give you guys some context and why, and we'll talk about relationships, which is where I want to start. So we had this idea for a news network, right? It was just an idea. We had this goal to try and raise £50,000 in 50 days. And of course I was, I don't have an uncle that can say, here you go, mate, don't waste it, whatever. So I reached out, I looked for people, and someone said, there's this influencer called Josiah Hyacinth. Of course, we're not the same age. I would let you guess who's older, but I was thinking to myself, well, why is he gonna reply to us? We had emailed 100 influencers, 100 celebrities, just to try and get them to help us with our campaign. And I thought to myself, I'm a nobody, or I wasn't, but for this, it makes the story more whatever. I was a nobody, and you sat there and you actually lent us his platform. At the time, you had 40,000 subscribers on YouTube. That was big back then. This is this big guy. Everyone knows him, and you helped us with our campaign. Let's talk a bit about relationships then, because obviously relationships are a key part of the creative journey. What are some of the key relationships that you think have sort of shaped your journey to being able to make this this life you're living sort of a possibility?
Yeah, I think my parents, number one. I think the relationship with my parents, I think I didn't realize how much of an influence it had on me. So I think as I grew up, I always saw a parent at home, and so my parents, now that I understand the language, they've always been to some degree self-employed, or one parent was always committed to being present with the kids and sacrifice their career. So I think that had a huge influence on me, because I always knew what was important at every stage was to protect and love the people that you meet and that you're around. So that was a very important relationship, and my dad's a really important figure to me. His humility and his characters really defined everything to me, and this kind of ineffable ability to be available and almost eternally accessible. And I think I want to embody those things. And of course, when you get into adult life, you're not really able to be available the whole time, but you can always kind of keep that. You can keep access. You can give people the sense that they can reach you, which is something that's super important to me. The second kind of key type of relationship would be mentorship. So quickly, you became a mentor of mine, which is really super important, because I'd never seen somebody. There was nobody at the time. Literally, there's no one I knew, or nobody that I could vaguely define, that was doing multiple things with one single narrative, if that made sense. It's as if, because everybody was doing one thing, but I didn't see somebody doing 10 things, but really their heart is really about one thing. They're just finding 10 ways to achieve that one thing. And so Mike was one of the first people, you were one of the first people that I saw doing that. And that made a huge difference to me. I've written about our interaction at TGI's. I think we sat there for I don't know, what felt like 8 hours. It's ridiculous. And he told me about how I bowled and what that said about me. I bowled the ball, I didn't miss, and I bowled the exact same thing. And he told me all about my life. But at the time, those things were super important to me, because I always felt this sense that my brain ticked differently to other people's, and I never could find language quick enough to be understood. And so I think that the mentorship thing, that was really important for me, because it gave language to this kind of deeply empathetic, quickly unfolding brain that I have. And then I saw a whole world of possibility. And then what it was also important for is it was grounding. So when I started YouTube, of course, I was the first black male vlogger in the UK, 2016, which is a pretty late time to have that. Of course, there was other people there, but they were gamers. But I predominantly would just take a camera and do that. There was nobody doing that. And so I was literally emerging in a space and there was nobody in front of me. And so I quickly garnered a lot of attention. And
can I just say, it was actually, I remember one time you came to see me in Manchester. Now, again, at this stage, I had done some things. So I was like, me too, I have, I know. But we were walking, and I remember one time we're 5, they would have been 15-year-old girls were oh, I've just missed the 200 meters. And I was just thinking, what? And they ran up to him, they were and Josiah's how are you? I'm just looking at him what on earth is going on here right now, right? I was there oh, I also have a, but they're get out of the way, uncle, that sort of thing. And so it was real. I know people talk about, but I mean, I've seen up front that people being I think that, go say hello. And I'm thinking, really? Wow. So you really had that sort of buzz. I saw it live out.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. And I think those two key relationships for me were really grounding. Because it was hard to lose yourself, because you had somebody. I was always below someone, which is important, and then very quickly with the platform, I without signing up, I became above so many different people, and so that was like a huge tension that I was constantly trying to figure out, But yeah, I think those two key relationships for me.
The reason why I thought we would start with relationships is because I think, again, I guess I could call myself a creative. One of the major issues I think, and with the whole thing is everyone thinks as like a solo ranger. It's me. I've got this idea in my head. I've got to get it out, whatever. Whereas in reality, like you need people for every idea. Philip, who's in the audience, has told me about an idea he has. No matter how gifted he is, he can't do it by himself. You've got to find some people, and what's so interesting is you never know who's on their way up and who's on their way down when you meet people. So it's interesting because people will look at you like, oh, a small fish, but then in 3 years' time, you're like something, and some people you look at as big fish, and in 5 years' time, the rose. So just keeping people super close, treating people with respect, and valuing the fact that you can't achieve anything by yourself, I think is super key. So I guess in that end then, or to that end, sorry, like again, away from just key relationships that have helped you, like what are some of those interactions you've had where maybe someone, you kind of met them at one stage and now they're doing this, or, could you speak a bit to that?
Yeah, I feel like,
because you used to YouTube with some people who now.
Yeah, I feel like everybody in that era. So, everyone in that era.
Who?
Like the Nella Roses, the Nehis, so many people. It's so bad I don't remember everyone's YouTube names because everyone's grown up. But like there was a whole era of us that came, and interestingly, like there was a period when I looked at like my university and just that there was a real creative hub, and I don't think we'd ever seen that in the UK. There was like just like a real buzz. Like I'd have people like hundreds of people DM me all the time. Like, oh, I came to this university because you guys were there. And there was just like...
That's a bad reason to go to university.
It's really bad.
Because you're gonna graduate.
Like people get upset with me. I remember someone came up to me like in the middle of like an event. It's like, yeah, you guys lied to us. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, bro, this is depressing.
Yeah.
I was like,
they feel like gonna be doing. You see that video where like you're in two rows,
and
you're like, who's the funniest? And you're like, oh, it's you. Like, whatever.
Everyone thought that was university, which is incredible. The things that people think from a screen, but but we had fun. I think like we had fun. I think we gave people a hope for what everyone is really looking for in life, which is really like belonging. Like everyone is wanting to go where they belong. And I think like we found that. So there was this huge emergence. So like when I think about, I even remember like, when I even think about, and maybe it's distinctively to that city as well, like Malik Berry, an artist, like an Afrobeats artist, he actually came to that university as well. Some of the cinematographers I know, there's the director of Penny Up, the film, he came to that university, Tommy.
Tommy is my family friend.
Yeah. And it's like, what's interesting is like, there's so many different people emerged from that space, from that university. I think, one thing to DMU is that I think because often people went there, who went there like weren't taken seriously. When they found each other, they took themselves seriously. So I think it emerged this group of people who just like was so determined to kind of like rip off every label that was given to them. And so it created this hub like in every single way. Some of the best fashion designers I know right now that are actually in the industry doing things came from that university. Some of the best creatives, I can't say the best creative, but some amazing creatives I know who are really doing amazing projects have gone through that university. And of course the university itself, like I had an interaction with the vice chancellor at the time, where all around the university, this was a really defining moment for me when I saw everything, like you can do anything in this world. All around the university there was like these posters that said be fearless. And so I DM'd like the top guy, the vice chancellor of the university. I was like, hey, so I have this business idea for you, and you wrote be fearless, so this is me being fearless. I emailed him and I said I want a meeting, and he was like, he emailed back. I thought, oh, he said, yeah, come in for a meeting. I think it was like a Tuesday. We had a talk, and that to me was crazy because I realized, I don't know, it just made me realize that like, ask people things when you meet them, tell them what you're doing. You're always going to find somebody to help. He was personally the person that helped me with my journey. But I think in terms of relationships, one rule that I've had and I use and I still use is, I think I got this from you. It may not be from you actually. It might be. You tell me. If you want to make £1 million, you ask 1 million people for £1. Was that you? Might have been you. But yeah, I think so. When you wanted to raise your 50K, like the way, if you guys know Mike, if you ever speak to Mike, yeah, Mike will talk. He would like, yeah, you should just ask 100,000 people for £1. You get 100K. I'm like, yeah, like, so he'll break it out like that, and you think, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm the reason I'm broke. You know what I mean? But from like our conversations that used to happen, it made you understand that the world really is relationships. Like there's so much equity that you have in relationships that you never tap into. And so in university, I had this rule in my heart, which is I'm gonna like have conversations with everyone that's worth more than £1. And it's like, you can literally say hello to somebody and someone will give you £1. Do you know what I mean? But I decided to have this radical commitment to be very kind to everybody. Now, as a Christian, of course, this is the desire, isn't it? But I wasn't that deep into my faith. This was just kind of an idea, right, at the time. But it just made sense, right? Why wouldn't you treat the smallest person you met as the biggest person? Because if you ever needed something, they would help you. And, being kicked out of university, I ended up being homeless for a year. Sleeping on people's couches, sleeping in the library sometimes. Like, you can really sleep in the library because they'll wake you up. But, there's ways to style it out. And I was homeless for a period, and I really depended on people. And I looked at the help that people lent me. It was so valuable, it was invaluable. And it's because every single relationship I had, I treated people kindly. Now, another part of that story about the university story is that people raised money for me to pay off my first year. There was a GoFundMe made by a friend of mine. I didn't ask him to. I wasn't involved in it. I was chilling one day in London. I see a GoFundMe being made, and inside of it had like £4,000 already in the first day that it was raised. And so this huge campaign, as I document it, money was being raised for people. People were so invested in my like me getting through that first year. Unfortunately, I raised that money, was able to pay for that year, but they didn't let me go through, which is so sad. But like I got to really see the power of community on a very tangible format. And it's all because for me, I was committed that I'm going to make every single person I meet feel seen in some way. I'm going to identify something in them that makes them feel seen. And I'm going to do it to the value of at minimum £1. Meaning if I speak to you right now and I say, and I share something with you and I listen to you, you should, like, if I was to ever ask you for like an ice cream, you'd be compelled to like, yeah, I'll get you one. And that's like that's like £3, £5 in this economy in London. But it's like, and one day I believe that there's going to be a day that I'm going to make something where I'm going to call on my million friends and I'm going to ask them for £1. And I think they'll give it to me. So that's my mission. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Have you noticed things sound cool when you cross your leg? Do you know what I mean? They just sound cool. It's like, I feel really cool with my leg crossed.
No, I mean, that's good. So I mean, so I want to sort of turn the page a tiny bit and talk a bit about this authenticity piece before we get into. We're going to get granular into the creative journey, making things, building things, all that sort of stuff. But just on still on this sort of topic, I guess. So, authenticity is something that it's interesting. As humans, I think we're quite good at sniffing it out. You can kind of, this is an authentic guy, or this is an authentic girl. But yet we struggle to be authentic. It's really odd. Yeah. We're very good at spotting who's authentic, but we ourselves sometimes struggle. You're someone who's had to live like not online, but you kind of had a camera in your face for a long time. Yeah. So how do you wrestle with the sort of the urge to, I guess, to portray something online, to be someone you're not? Did you have a journey where you're maybe pretending and you had to kind of find your voice and find who you actually are? Yeah. Like, how's that journey been for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's been tumultuous, to say the least. It's been a very tumultuous journey. But have I ever performed? I don't think so. I think I've always been myself as I found myself. But I think I've always wrestled with the idea of that, because you quickly learn in the industry that, like, if you can perform a character and sell that character, it has many benefits. Number one, you can separate yourself from it. So if people attack that character, it isn't you. And so, being authentic means that when you get hate, it really hurts, because people are actually saying things based on what they see, and you actually showed yourself. You weren't faking it. And so it can feel that little bit extra. personal. But for me, I think I was always true to myself as I found myself. So as much as I discovered and encountered parts of me, like, there's old videos of me dancing. That's really is who I am. Like, I was on Big Clash. Like, it's really me. I love dancing, but like, I tried to show the most prominent aspect of me in time. So now I'm a little bit more maybe reflective because it's just kind of where I'm at. But it's been a tumultuous journey because people don't want you to be yourself. They want you to be what they want to be. They're not being. And so you're always having to answer to what people kind of trying to mold you to be, which is really, really difficult. But then, of course, in yourself, you're seeing people succeed by just performing. And there's always a seduction to like take a cheap route out. Luckily, like I said, I think I had those early relationships that were really grounding, with people who have committed to different paths. So to me, like, committing to a different path was never not glamorous. It was something that I could do.
But where does that confidence come from?
I think I don't know. Like I said, my dad is a pivotal relationship because I think seeing the outcome of his life, it's not that bad. Like, and I think I guess the metrics of success for me have always been different, but I think that's been because of like good relationships. Like, the metrics of success have never been to blow up and like to be the most known person in the world. Really, it's to get to a point where I can do all I desire to do, and provide for the people I need to provide for. It's always been like that. Now, of course, when I was younger, like when I was on Twitter and back in the YouTube days, right? Like, there was a seduction to try and blow up. It was the mission. The mission is like to be the biggest guy ever. Like, I kind of at one point wanted that, but because of like so much that happened online, like bullying, like, like so much, I went through so much online. I quickly learned that like this is all fickle. Like, because if you live for people's acceptance, you'll die from their rejection. And it was just like, I would experience days when like I'm being everything that people kind of want me to be. I'm showing the sides of them that they actually asked for. And I realized I can't live for you because you just don't even know what you want. People don't know what they want. People want to be told what they feel. It's all these different things. And you quickly learn that isn't sustainable for a person. Plus, it just wasn't true to me. I just wasn't happy. There are times I would find myself molding a little bit, veering a little bit. And, even, most distinctive point was when I started talking about my faith more. Like, it really actually deeply upset people. People hated the fact that I talked about my faith. They hated the fact that, like, it almost felt like people were annoyed that I was more than a pretty boy. I used to get that a lot. Like, I'm a pretty boy. It's one of the reasons I started.
Me too.
It's one of the reasons I started growing my hair out. But I hated the idea that like I was acquiring knowledge and people couldn't.
They're like, shut up.
Just smile.
Just smile.
I literally, and I hated that, and so I took the road less traveled.
Yeah.
But it was tumultuous, man.
This is good. I mean, I think it's a good probably place to park the bus because even on your time on Twitter, now X, and in fact, I refuse to call it X. Twitter.
Call it Twitter.
Twitter, whatever, on social media. Was there a time in all of that, like, that you felt really misunderstood? And then how did you sort of...
Yeah. I mean, I think... So, like, I've been like, cancelled online a few times and dragged. And I think in the middle of lockdown, I think was one of the most kind of horrible times for me because it was just a time when, like, old things were being brought up and there was something that came up that I had apparently tweeted when I was, like, younger. And, at this point, I've apologized for everything as best as I can because my views are just different. I'm growing. But it seemed like the world never wanted to move forward. And that was just a deeply alienating time because there was these misrepresented views. And I think it was deeply painful because it felt like it was such a dangerous time in lockdown to, like, defend someone because it was just so hot online. Like, I remember making a tweet and it got 2.6 million likes. That's how many people were on the internet during lockdown. And my name was in the middle being dragged with a bunch of other creators in the UK. So it was a really hot time. That time for me, I felt deeply understood. I think maybe what hurt the most was maybe my friends. I lived with my friends. And maybe what really hurt was seeing how undefended I was by them, which I understand. I understand the risk for them. But to feel like the people who actually knew me and actually what I believed in didn't stand up for me, that was painful. But I love them. But that was a painful time. It's still something I work through continually. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah. So what I mean, what was that journey of working through it? Like what sort of things did you do?
Yeah, like speak to good counsel. I'm sure I spoke to you about it, things. Yeah, just yeah. The best advice that I think you mentioned to me, which really helped me, is is to guard people in your heart. Like decide that it's this idea of forbearance. Like you decide that you're not going to view this person as what they did to you, but as who they actually are. And it allowed me to understand that like everyone did the best of what they knew. I hope, and even if they didn't, like it's a waste of time to live in a painful moment because I'm just reliving it, and I have to move on. And to some degree, like I'm still learning how to move on. Like, is there still a fear to like still be on stage again? Sometimes, do I feel like I think I'm entering the year in which I don't care anymore. But for the last since 2020, I think that really bruised me. Like I really detached from social media. Like my appearance changed. I just wanted to not be seen so badly. And I think I'm still emerging from that moment. Even till now, I still find myself running away from the stage. I'd rather be in really small rooms because you know what, like I don't want anyone to think I'm trying to speak for the masses. I just have a few things to say that I think are really important to me. If you want to listen, that's okay. And so healing is just still showing up and fighting as much as I find the urge to disappear, reminding myself that what I have to say is valuable to a few, and that should be enough. Like I'm reminded of the words of Paul. This is the scripture. It says, "I'm all things to all men, so that some can be saved." I think like I have to exist in the space and the platform I've been given because at the end of the day, it's a gift. I think a good preserving thing that held me in that moment of everything, when I lost friends and people who misunderstood me, it was really weird. People who knew me, like, how could you say this? I'm like, I just don't. Yeah, and I just don't believe that. I don't believe. And they're like, yeah, but you knew you were gonna blow, and I'm like, I didn't. I was 9 years old. I was 10 or something. Like I didn't know I was gonna. But I don't believe in those things. I don't agree with them. But people were so upset, and you had to be okay with people's upset because they found out today, so they have real emotions. You can't invalidate those, but you have to understand that like, at the end of the day, I can lock my phone. There's grass outside. I can go for a walk.
Yeah.
And when you're in the hype, you think that that's all that is there, and I've learned that there's more.
It's so interesting to me because even watching because at the time I didn't have anywhere near that sort of following online. Nobody knew who I was, all that sort of stuff. Like what you sort of quote unquote walked away from is something that a lot of people probably coveted or like would have really wanted. Like, I mean, not that numbers are important, but 40,000 on this platform, 20,000 on this platform, 10,000 here, 13,000, like literally thousands. And again, all your peers were really capitalizing on their sort of platform. They had similar numbers. I mean, they're now millions and all that sort of stuff. So it was really that pivotal point where you sort of like an inflection point. And I watched you walk away, and of course we've had many chats, where I'm kind of like, these 40,000 people, are you going to talk to them? Are you going to, and you're just like, I'm just not in that space. I have nothing, I don't feel. So the effect was deep, wasn't it? In that it really, and even till now, you're still working out what kind of relationship you want to have when you come back, if you come back, what you're going to make, what's of value, etc.
Yeah, I am. And as you said, right, it's not coming back, it's moving forward.
Correct.
And I think, I'm deciding now that there's more, and I have to show up for what's on the other side, what's on that horizon. I think, and a pivotal thought that I had in everything was, and the reason I was able to walk away, which is a very important reason. I think everybody should identify within themselves. The reason I was able to walk away was, I had this, and I think I've said this to some of you, that you can't take something away from someone who will give it up. And I think it's important to have an owner's heart, owner's hands and a steward's heart. And so knowing that like everything I have right now is passing through me, but I have to own it while it's in my hands, but I have to remember that it isn't mine. And so I'm not like, if I vanish from the world, I mean, I was never there in the first place in terms of in that way. My life isn't defined by that metric. I have a real life. But if I have the platform, then it's what am I going to do with it? And I think I'm learning now, as much as I try and shake it away, I can't. I think that's the discovery I have right now. As much as I try and like run away from these things, I find myself in a seat in front of people. every time. And what I've noticed is it may be a smaller room, but it's a far deeper room. You know, it might be just 10 miles wide, 10 feet wide, but it's 1 mile deep, which I found is much more important to me. So I'd rather be in a million of those rooms than be in one big room with a million people.
And you're very good at it. I mean, anyone who thinks you should just sort of dance and smile is misguided. I think there's way more depth to you as we're sort of discovering here. And I'm glad we're starting here because I know people might be like, let's talk about growing the platform. All right, enough of this stuff. Come on, how do I go on TikTok? You know? And like I said, we will get there. We will get. Yeah, it's crazy. The dancers always grow.
Always grow.
All of you creative projects, forget it. Just dance. That's the thing. No, we'll get into that.
The surface will always be valuable.
I mean,
to some.
Oh, this is full of one-liners, aren't you? That
I learned from you.
One-liners. Okay, cool. So it's good we're starting here because I think having the right mindset, heart for when your platform is big is probably important.
Sure.
You know, again, I'm a believer. I know not everyone watching this or not everyone in the room is or will be, but I do think, you know, we get things at the right time, right? So, you know, some of us, if we had 1 million followers right now, it would actually lead to our death. You know, just because you're just not ready to manage that kind of those kind of eyes, right? You know, I was telling someone before, like having this space. This is our third space, right? And I remember thinking to myself when we first started the Conversations Network, we were like 100 people in the group chat, lots of energy. There were so many people excited about what we were doing, but we had no space. And I just remember thinking like, I just wish we had like a room, even a random room, just so we can gather. And it's taken however many years for us to actually have a space. Why do we have a space now? Because we can actually manage it. Like there's finances that come in and leave. You know, back in the days it was just energy. Now we actually have an organization, etc. So yeah, things in the right time. Okay, so let's turn the page once more and get more sort of granular. So what do you do? I know sometimes we speak in loose terms, but you're a storyteller. You're a digital storyteller. Of course, you got a platform and you use that, or you don't use it so much, but you'll use that. But you work with brands, you work with organizations. You've managed to find a way to make creativity make sense in terms of having money, being able to kind of do things. So let's get into, for everyone in this room or who's watching who aspires to be a creative, and we'll make it very loose. It could be a business owner. It could mean you just got an idea. Let's get into the sort of the business end of what are some of the key pieces of advice you'd be given for creating a platform, you know, getting started on creative projects, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I would say do them I would do them a series for me. One thing I struggle with is like consistency. So I would do it seriously. I would have a good structure, a good plan. I would know. This feels like a lot. So these are things I just didn't do that I'm doing now. I would define who my persona is. Who do I want to speak to? That helps me to know. That becomes a good kind of central point when nobody turns up. I know that I know who I act. Like if nobody turns up, I know that I still need to say what I have to say until somebody turns up. And when the right person turns up, I know that I'm saying the right thing to them. So if there's a room full of 10, I know that at least I am saying what I need to say. So knowing who my persona is, I would think about it properly about what's the end. I'll think with the end in mind. I'll start with the end in mind. I might do something like a brief or a brand pack related to myself or to whatever it is the project, so that I can keep referring to this. Because I think when you do projects or anything creative, there's always or in funding, they call this like funding drift, where you have an idea and then you're trying to find money for it, and then to get the money for it, you start to bend the idea to fit the money. And the same with your creativity can happen, where to find the resources to make the thing come to life, you can drift. And so you don't want to drift if it was something that you really thought about, something that's important. So I would say really know what you're doing, not know how, but like what is the message you're saying to the world? What do you like? What can you stand to say when it doesn't go well? What can you continue saying when it's going horrible? And then what does that look like? Who's that speaking to? And then where do you want to say it? And I think I have a three-step rule, which is get started, get good, and then get smart. So you want to get started and put 10,000 hours into it. Just get started. And then as you get started, over time, you're going to get good. You're going to find out the things that don't work, the things that do work. But essentially, you want data to be able to like review and say, okay, cool. Like, oh, this spiked, and then you can analyze it, and then you can try that thing with this thing, and then this thing with this thing, and then that helps you define who that is, and then you're no longer drifting, you're just redefining. And then you get smart, which is maybe when you start to, invest into like more things, whether it's like an extra tripod so that you don't have to move the camera from here and then move this tripod because this tripod's super important. And then you start to get smart about your processes. And so that's what I would say to do in the beginning. Reason being, it has longevity in mind. Whereas like for me, I think when I look back at my journey, I think I was quite reactive. I'm still quite reactive. I have amazing ideas, but you want to be proactive. Is the best way.
I mean, that's so good. Get started, get good, get smart. I mean, if we just, with the get started part, because again, there might be a lot of people here who, again, are watching who have an idea. Yeah. Like, what stops you from getting started? What would you say to kind of push them over the edge?
Yeah, I mean, what stops people from getting started is them thinking that there's too many people doing that. And that's just not true. I mean, it's kind of like, it's as silly as saying, oh, there's too many films out in the cinema, I'm not going to watch any. It's a weird thing to do. So you just go find the film that you like. And people are constantly searching for the voices that they like, whether it's tone of voice, whether it's message, whether it's energy. Your voice is going to matter to someone. And if you don't occupy that space, that person doesn't get to identify. We have words that help give us expression. And so you are like the word to someone's expression. I think deciding that you're going to remove yourself because there's so many people out there is literally taking away expression from the world. And you need to do that. I think it's important to put that yourself there. So like if you want to get over, you think so many people don't, be yourself on that place and do that consistently. That's a way to get over the line. I'd also say, be resourceful. So what do you have right now that can help you do it? So if you're a videographer, let's say you're interested in videography. I say videography meaning like not just content creation. So like you want to do it as a service and video people. Well, if you just have a phone, then that's the first place you're going to do your videography. So you might do mobile videography. So you can still learn the techniques and all these different things. And you can practice on your phone before you can get a camera. That might actually define the audience that you serve in the beginning. So you might actually start doing BTS for weddings or BTS for photo shoots until you can get a camera where you can do the more cinematic stuff. But you can begin right now. And so it's finding what you have right now that you can begin with. Because I promise you, you'll spend the rest of your life buying cameras and then you'll never ever use them properly.
The question I have, whilst you were going into your story, which was so impactful, by the way, obviously I'm a fan of your content. And I think one of the things I recognize about your content that's a really strong attribute is there's a consistency. So there's a recognizable trait. When I think, and I say this in a sense where like, even a smallest gesture like TikTok, there might be a little color grade difference. And I recognize, oh, this is Josiah's content. And I wanted to ask, with what you've experienced through the journey, especially during that lockdown time and walking away from a big kind of presence, so on and so forth, how necessary was that to keep your consistency through your brand? Like, do you think you would your brand identity be as strong as it is now if you hadn't experienced what happened during COVID?
Well, there's two questions in there, right? So the first one, the reason I still keep things the way I do things is because I think there's a very interesting thing. If you were to go back and watch all my old videos, there's always a hint to the next video in the old video. It's just something fun for me. So I like the idea of like artists that like they always do something in their work that is for them. And so I always like to do that in my work. That's down to like the color grade. I think it's like a little flex for yourself. It's like, okay, this is me. And so it's really encouraging to know that like there's a style that feels like it's mine. I think that's a really good identification. So, but I do that just primarily because I want to sign off every work to some degree, and I enjoy that process. I think I've really been seeing myself as an artist recently, and it helps me respect the craft so that it helps me do it. Because honestly, like, I don't want to be on social media for no reason. That's my point. So that's like a nice signature. And then the second question, I think, all that I went through was important for me to get here because I think it's just made me wiser. And so I think the journey of having to grow up really, really quickly and the tension of being reactive to wanting to be proactive, to wanting to like, make a real impact, to like, I think it was accelerated because I felt like at one point I lost everything, and I never wanted to feel like I never want to be in a position where strangers can take everything away from me. That makes sense. Like people I haven't met, I never want to be in that position again. And so that's really informed the way I structure what I do, whether it be how, like, that there's a huge desire to do things more offline now. And it's not to say that the internet stuff isn't important, but it's because like that's actually out of everything, that was always most important for me. So I think with my brand now, with everything I have, I think it's actually made me stronger. And I think it's given me more longevity, because I think like my desire is like in 5 years, 6, when I'm like 32, I'm married, God willing, it's like, that'll just be another story to tell. It'll be another stage, it'll be new experiences. I would have arrived at a new place and I'm just gonna simply share that story. So I think it allowed me to hone in on what really I was about. And so I think, yeah, it was really key.
My question was, have you ever experienced those around you not believing or supporting one of your visions? And if so, how did you deal with it? How did it affect you?
All the time. Yeah, I think, yeah. How did it affect me? I think it used to make me sad. I mean, it still kind of does make me sad. I think like, it's not sad, like, oh, it's just like, I think it used to deeply upset me. I think I still have seasons of this, like even now. And I think like you're human, it will get to you where, like transparently, like in this room, I would love to see some faces that I just never see in any rooms I'm in, but I'm always in the rooms they're in. And to some degree, there's like some sense of, I wish, right? But my relationship with that now, what it's done to me is, if you spend time trying to get those people you really want in those rooms, you miss out on the people that are in the rooms with you. And I think the way I deal with that now is, I mean, like just there's people here with me. And so give everybody the opportunity, like, they, you know, pay attention to people here. So does it feel sad? Yes. And have I been in a position where I felt like I haven't been spoiled by close friends? Yes, like all the time. Like I've been thinking of like some of my biggest moments. Like I haven't shared any of like my biggest achievements with my parents. But it's also understanding where they're at, understanding the positions they hold. It would be unfair for me to sometimes expect certain things from people. And my dad has this rule, and he's very big on this, which is no obligations. If you can have relationships with people where you have no obligations, like they don't feel obliged to do anything, then when they're there, then you can trust that they wanted to be there, and they're there for their own reason. I think that matters more to me now, specifically in a landscape like London and all the cities I normally am in or speaking in, or the places I'm in. They're usually cultures motivated by people who you have to like, like sometimes I don't want fake relationships in front of me. This is my point. And I don't want people to be around me that don't genuinely want to be there. I'd much more prefer that actually who's on the other side of whatever I'm saying is people who actually need it the most. Now that may feel smaller oftentimes, that may feel like less support, but actually like that is in line. Remember my whole avatar and everything that I built. When I look back to the fundamental thing that I created to say, Josiah, this is where you want to go, then I'm actually on point. Whereas if I didn't have that, I would probably feel like I'm not where I need to be. And so, because I know who I'm speaking to, I'm okay to speak to just one of them. If there's only one person in the room, I'm okay with that now, because like it's important that gets to that person. So yes, it hurts, but my relationship with it is quite healthy now, because once again, I think I know who I'm speaking to. And so oftentimes the people I'm speaking to the most aren't the people that know me the most, because they're very familiar with me. And so they probably heard this 1,000 times. So they don't need to be in the room.
So kind of going off of that point, talking about like authenticity, it's like a bit of a two-part question, but how did you become okay with, in short, like falling on your face in terms of like, you were saying earlier, like kind of 3-part rule that you have is get started, then get good and get smart. But even Mikey was saying how people tend to like procrastinate, and then you have problems with perfectionism because you want to get smart before you get started. And like, I feel like I struggle a lot with like the same thing to it's just like lots of thinking and nothing's actually being produced. So my question is like, how did you kind of get okay with just like being okay with failing?
Yeah, I don't think I'm okay with failure. But I'm failing to try to figure out how not to fail. So yeah, I don't think I'm okay with it, truly. And I think maybe this is our generational thing, but I think for us, I feel like our generation you can often find that people want to make sure that every single aspect of their life is developed perfectly before they begin something in their mind. And when you look at the older generation, they just started and they figured it out, and so I think like it's okay to not be so developed when you begin. I think there's always two types of people you meet in the world: destination people and journey people. And you want to identify who you are. And naturally, you want to ideally be a mixture of both, because if you're a destination person, then you're always waiting to get to a point before you actually start doing what you actually want to do. And if you're a journey person, you're like, I'm just gonna embrace the journey and I have no plan. Which I'm a bit of both now. But, yeah. What are you?
Don't know. Yeah, for the vibe.
For the vibe, yeah. Journey people, it's like, yeah, man, it's like so good, bro. But I think I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with failing. I get embarrassed a lot. I'm often shy. I'm often scared. Pretty much most times. I like if you guys saw me before we started, I sat at the back. I was just like nervous. And then I came, tried to get a bit of validation. I was like, how was that? And they were like, oh, it's good. I was like, hey, great. So I'm not okay with failing, but like, I don't know, like you just won't get anything done if you're waiting for every perfect circumstance. It just won't happen. I think it's more important really to like send a message than to decorate the envelope. Like you have to realize that. And I think there's going to be a point. I think if you really create if you are telling stories for yourself, like speaking to you, then I think you said this, right? If it's important, then it doesn't really matter whether it's going well or not. If it's important to do, and so oftentimes it's like, is this actually important to do? Because I think as humans we struggle spending a lot of time like if we really talk about investing into things, nobody's gonna make a stupid investment. It doesn't matter how smart you are. There's a certain level of efficacy that you have. No, that's the wrong word. There's a certain level of consciousness that you have that still innately you just won't spend money too wrongly. I think the same is with ourselves. And so take yourself more seriously. And there's this reality, right? I was speaking at an event recently, and I gave a session and I was reflecting about it with my boy who was the organizer, Project 2%, right? He said he did like a CV clinic and I was speaking. And we were reflecting on the impact of that. And for many people, they just turned up and just took a picture for their CV and maybe like learn about the CV. But for us, like in all the things we do, we get to share information that one day will lead somebody to get a job, and it'll be a job that gets them like into the place that they want to be. Like that's literally generational wealth. Like through information, we're giving people opportunities that they may never have had access to. And you are doing that in some way. And so if you constantly diminish your ideas because you want to perfect them first, then you diminish all that could happen like outside of you. And so really, Mike also said this, and I love this, which is a really great quote, don't take things personally, take things seriously. It's a really good quote. If you can detach yourself from the outcome of what you're producing, then what happens is you make a difference. And by the time you really want to get things right, you've already made a lot of difference. I think that really matters.
I think one piece of advice that might help, just in addition to what you said, that I think is so good, is in terms of making a decision and just sort of getting started and not sort of being such a perfectionist, etc. I think I was speaking to somebody not too long ago, and they were sort of wrestling with 2 or 3 big decisions they're about to make. Right? Should I stay in this city? Should I move to another country? All these decisions, and they had been wrestling with that for probably, I would say, a few months at this stage. It's kind of nearing the 6th month stage, and they're like, I still don't know which one to pick, etc. And I was like, well, what are you afraid of? And we through conversing, we found out the biggest fear was essentially getting it wrong. What if I make the wrong decision? If I move from Manchester to London and I wasn't meant to move at that stage, whatever. And I think that's a very rational fear. All of us have that. Should I start this YouTube channel? Is it a waste of? Should I start this series? Should I send that email? Whatever. Here's I guess a bit of research that might help. So apparently, on every day we make around over 4,000 decisions. Yeah. It's why in the evening you had decision fatigue, because you're just tired, so you make a terrible decision because you just, right in the morning you're good. For you to ruin your life, you'd have to work really hard to ruin your life. The idea that one decision will totally destroy your life, it's just nonsense.
Yeah.
We kind of fool ourselves into thinking that, because out of the 4,000, it's just one you've made, right? And when I say 4,000, I'm talking about stuff like, should I turn left, should I turn right? These are all decisions your brain's making, even without you being cognizant of it. So I told this guy, and again, he's a believer as well. So I said, not only, can one decision not destroy your life, you've also got somebody who's taking all your terrible decisions and somehow making it work for good. Move to whatever. I said, I can't lie, flip a coin. London or Manchester, be like, London it is. Because it is that, and this might sound sort of paradoxical, but I think it is that inconsequential actually.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to make so many bad decisions. You'd have to move to the wrong place.
And you'd have to ignore so many
signs. All your friends, then you start doing drugs. Then you do harder drugs. Then you end up on the street. Then you'd have to go down all the way to I'm now under a bridge. And then there's even programs to help you get under. But you have to reject the program, jump in the water. You'd have to do so much to get to the stage where you're like, nah, I messed up. You'd have to
in the water.
you're in a submarine exploring the Titanic. You're like, oh, okay, now I messed up. Whatever. But you get the gist. You'd have to do something. So with that in mind, I'm just it doesn't really matter. This next decision you're about to make, it really does not matter. And in the same way, by the way, it works the opposite way round. If you ever meet someone successful, never denigrate it to think they've probably just made one. Do you know the amount of reps you have to put in to be an overnight success? The amount of hours you have to put in to be to have 40,000. It doesn't, for nobody does it just happen like that. It's years and years. People talk about Ronaldo, right? He broke the record for subscribers. He did it in whatever days. Yeah, because he's been playing football in front of our face
at the top of the world
for years. And whilst we were eating whatever, he was a young child in an academy. All of that is what's culminated to him being the most followed man on the earth. And so the one decision you're about to make is never that deep. Just make it, get on with it.
I'm Savelle, and I've been watching you for a few years, since you went to uni. So it's really nice to be able to be here and listen to your journey. I recently started my own photography business. But I actually have a question to do with editing, because I did a shoot and I was editing, and it's I have one particular way that I like to edit, but as I was editing I was like, oh no, this looks nice and this looks nice too. So it's sort of, how would you say to be okay with accepting the fact that there's not just one way that you like to do things? For example, if I was now to post that on my feed, it would look different to everything else that I've posted. So it's sort of
then post 10 more of those.
Huh?
Post 10 more of those ones, the new ones.
Yeah, but you like both.
Yeah. I feel like I'll go back to your answer. Just make the decision.
Just make the decision.
No,
Okay.
but I think it's because, correct me if I'm wrong here, you've got a style, it's established, people know you for that, that's what you know for. Now you're thinking, is it time for me to pivot and start?
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up my feed.
How would it come across?
Correct.
Yeah.
Not that it should matter what they think, but it sort of does.
Yeah. Do you want to do it?
Yes, because it's sort of like clothing. We all have different types of clothing that we like to wear.
Yeah, I think you should do it. I think you should do it. And if you like both, post both. I've seen people post
people do film and then normal.
Yeah, literally all the things that we get inspiration from was somebody trying something, and so I would say just try it and just I think have fun. We make. I miss the time when things were fun. I think have fun with stuff. I think you should enjoy what you're doing. I think that often brings the most joy even to the people who participate in what you do. When you think about wedding photography, that industry is a scam.
Can we talk about that?
We can talk
It
about
is the biggest scam.
It's the biggest scam.
Yeah.
Because really, I'm telling you now, I can probably do a very good job on an iPhone and I'll chop your money. But really, what we love about these moments, even like, you know, when we watch all these Apple adverts and all these different things, you know, it's that people, what we love the most isn't what we think we love. We really love seeing people connect. We really love joy being captured. Like we really love emotion being captured. You know, it doesn't really so much matter. Like somebody doesn't look at my work. Like the technical people might look at my work and say, "Oh, the color grade, right?" Or a literature teacher might say, "Oh, this is so sultry. This is giving." Like,
It's given.
You know what I
They're
mean?
not gonna say that
Well,
if they
you know.
speak English. Sorry.
given.
An English teacher. Sorry. Carry on.
But like to the average person, they're just gonna connect with it.
Correct.
And so I think like overthinking it, you're thinking as a technician. And that's why you're a photographer, because you're a technician. But remember that you're also sharing with consumers. And so if you're using your mind frame to judge how it's going to be received, that's the wrong mind frame, because they're not technical. And so that's your job. And so it's on you to notice those things, but actually remember who you're speaking to. Remember that they're different. And so you can detach yourself a little bit. You can detach yourself from it a little bit, if that makes sense. But at the same time as well, like I think also have fun. Like make the work meaningful. Because at the end of the day, when I look back on my photography work, honestly now I'm fortunate enough where I do 1 or maybe 2 shoots a year with people that I really like. And like anytime I'm doing that work, I'm doing work that I actually really care about. Like it makes me happy when I watch it back. And so people are paying me to do something that I'm enjoying to watch. I'm really just, and now I'm in a place where I know what I want to do and I know my style, and it might change, but really it's for my consumption. I've now got to the place where I'm consuming the things I created, and I'm watching it back. So I think don't discount that, like enjoy it. And I think if you connect with it, people will. And just have fun with it and let yourself change, because you'll find a middle point of like 2-3 things, and then you'll probably stay there and be like, yeah, this is it. It's just your journey. And so just enjoy the journey.
Hey, thank you for taking time to watch that video. Here at the Common Sense Network, we thrive on exposing you to different ideas. If you're someone who likes ideas, you like learning new things, hit the subscribe button now and turn on notifications so you're first to hear when we have a new video out.